everyone hear me? Yes, good, okay. So we're gonna get started. A lot going on. I know people are still getting espressos downstairs, but they're just gonna have to walk in the middle. All right, so I want to welcome everyone to the 37th Lava Salon. This is the 37th. This is, thank you. We're going over a year now here at Cafe Figaro. We used to be Clifton's Cafeteria, which is still undergoing a major sea change. All sea changes are major, so it's redundant to say major. I want to welcome everyone. This is my friend Fanny. She's great. All right? We're going to talk about my childhood hero. Okay, and I'll leave that for you to tell people about my childhood hero. Let's see. That's what I was obsessed with. At the age of 15, my Latin teacher turned out to be a graduate student at UCLA in comparative literature who was doing his PhD on Arthur Rimbaud and Charles Baudelaire. So instead of so we spent 15 minutes a day translating the Aeneid so we could all take the advanced placement Latin exam, and then we just studied French. So he introduced me to Louise Varèse's translations of Rimbaud and Baudelaire, which helped me learn French. And so you're going to talk about her. Her husband is Edgar. Edgar is one of the fathers of electronic music, so that's the connective tissue of this theme. However bizarre it may be, and Fanny, I'm going to get your slideshow up, and you're going to properly introduce yourself and tell us about this incredible woman who is my childhood hero. And there you go.
So good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon in Los Angeles. It's a bit high, I think. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
So you put an additional pressure on me this afternoon, Rachel. I was not expecting to talk about or on your childhood hero, but I tried to do my best. So again, first of all, before I start my talk, I would like to thank wholeheartedly Kim and Richard for inviting me this afternoon to this great event. I'm always attending your salon, Sunday Salon, with great excitement, but I'm sure this one will be a special one with the music following. So when Richard approached me to do a presentation on Louise Varèse, I have to confess that my first reaction was not necessarily to think immediately about the writer, the author, and the translator, and the wife of Edgar Varèse. And actually, the name of Varèse evoked for me a sort of Proustian reverie. You know, the alliterations in the V brought me not to just a person, but to a place, and that place was Italy. So I was thinking of Vivaldi, Veronese, Vaporetto, and so on. And then, of course, back to reality, I was thinking, well, no, she's the wife of Edgar Varèse. She's the wife of Edgar Varèse, but fewer people know her as an author, a translator, and a reader of Proust. So here came my interest for Louise Varèse, who was obviously not born in Italy, but she was born in Pittsburgh to start with. She was born in 1890.
Great city.
Right, it's a great city. I've not been there yet, but I'm sure it is. She was born in Pittsburgh, and while I was doing my research on Louise Varèse, actually there is little information about her. Even as a researcher, it's hard to gather information about this woman. So I tried to do my best. And most of her archives right now are actually held at Smith College on the Northeast. And what I could find of interest in her biography, who was she, was a woman, again, born in Pittsburgh. She spent apparently most of her childhood in Utah, and then very rapidly, at a young age, she moved to New York City. And that's probably where, obviously, her life completely changed. She was really lucky and fortunate to gravitate around the avant-garde circles in those times. And she was a really close friend of Marcel Duchamp, but she really started her career as a literary person when she basically married her first husband, the journalist and poet, as you can see here, Alan Norton. And with her husband, she became the co-editor of an avant-garde magazine, Vogue, which was basically, I would say, focusing on avant-garde surrealist poetry and literature. The marriage didn't last so long, and then she met the Edgar Varèse that now we're all really familiar with. So she divorced in the late 1910, and she married Edgar Varèse, and that encounter obviously really changed her life. Louise Varèse, as again maybe most of you do not necessarily know, was not just the wife of Edgar Varèse, but she was a very accomplished literary figure in her time. And I think there is actually quite a lot of work still to do to reassess the importance of this woman in the context of not just women literature, but in the context of world literature, with especially a work on translations. So, what were her most important contributions to world literature? So, there is a really large corpus of works. I could not necessarily refer to all of them today with you, but what I found of really interest was that she had really eclectic and diversified interest in terms of literature, and so she became the translator really of the most important French writers of the early 20th century. So she translated, to name them, and among them not your national hero, Richard, but your childhood hero, Arthur Rimbaud the poet. So she became really the translator of most important French literary figures. To name them in poetry, Baudelaire, Stendhal, Rimbaud, Saint John Perse, Julien Gracq, but also in fiction, Georges Simenon, Stendhal again, of course, Bernanos, and many others. For the purpose of this presentation today, I just wanted to find a sort of approach, or not necessarily approach, but an item of interest. And I thought she translated so many writers and authors, which one should I pick really to talk about and to show how different her work was, or how different her contribution to literature was. And then came the work of Marcel Proust. I happen to be a Proust scholar, so obviously that brought a sort of smile on my face, and I thought, again, another Proust reader, and not, the least important one. But what was really of interest in that research that I was making for this presentation is that I found a sort of oddity in the corpus of the work. As a translator, she did translate an important work of fiction written by Marcel Proust entitled Pleasures and Regrets. And interestingly enough, I found out that there were obviously many editions of that book translated by Louise Varèse, the first one being published in 1948, 1949 by Crohn. But in the reprint of this edition of 1948, a reprint in 1984, I realized there were some pieces missing. And I thought this is a very interesting question to raise or to ask as a researcher. Why the second or third edition of the book she translated omitted certain parts in the translation? So, that book, Pleasures and Regrets, which was published for the first time in 1949, came out with a different version in 1984. And in that latest version, that you see on the right-hand side of this slide, so in this second version, this 1984 version, the two sections that were omitted, either by the translator or the publisher, this is definitely an enigma that needs to be resolved. Those sections precisely talk about music. And in my little research, what I found was that this section about music was portraying or presenting two other important literary figures of French literature, Bouvard and Pécuchet. Alors, où who are Bouvard and Pécuchet? I need to here just to contextualize a little bit who were these two people so that you really understand the importance of that passage. So, again, in this book that Louise Varèse translated in 1948, Pleasures and Regrets, first written by Marcel Proust, in this book, Pleasures and Regrets, you have several sections. And in those sections, that are collections of literary essays by the author Marcel Proust. Marcel Proust is talking about a very important book in French literature, Bouvard and Pécuchet. Bouvard and Pécuchet was a work of fiction first published by French writer Gustave Flaubert in 1881. And Bouvard and Pécuchet are very well known to be two very vain characters. What happens to them? At the very beginning of the book, they are copy clerks. They are really actually bored with their life, not just personal, but professional life as well. And suddenly, by a sort of magical twist, one of them inherits a large fortune from some remote parents. So they start to work, obviously, they quit their jobs, their daily jobs, and they embark on a journey. So they travel, they attend salon, not this like this one, but other type of salon. So they travel all over the world, they attend salon, they just spend basically their time talking to people, philosophizing about any topics like geometry, art, literature, music, and so on. And very rapidly, even though they seem to have the perfect life, right, jet setting all over the world, they actually become really disgusted with life and they even contemplate suicide. So they go back to France and eventually they realize that this life of leisure and this life of philosophy is not for them, so they quit everything and they go back to their daily jobs as a copy clerk. So this is the book. So of course there's a lot of humor, a lot of irony. Flaubert is really greatly known for that. And so in this book that Marcel Proust is referring to, in her translation, Louise Varèse omits what I think to be one of the most important parts, which talks about music. And in this slide that I show you today, you have an extract or an excerpt of these two moments when Bouvard and Pécuchet, while they are attending this salon, talk about music. And what do they say about music? They talk about French music, but not just French music, they talk about European music in general. So, as you can see, they are quite not just disgusted with life in general, but they are disgusted with bicycles, with painting, and also music. So, Gounod make them laugh, Verdi make them scream, Eric Satie, well, Eric Satie at least could be accepted by them, and Saint-Saëns and Massenet really lack form or interest. So we are really asking ourselves the questions, really, what do they enjoy? What type of music do they enjoy? And then they go on and forth and they continue. And we have this very interesting revelation at the end of this section, which again was omitted by Louise Varèse in the 1984 edition. We have this very interesting section, closing section of that chapter that was again omitted, when they talk about another contemporary French musician, Léon de la Fosse. And Léon de la Fosse was not just a pianist, but he was also a composer, and created a sort of outrage in the musical circles in the early 1920s in France because he was considered to basically not playing or performing traditional music. He was basically inspired by the scream of bats, and this is the origin basically of his music. So you can only imagine how the public at that time could react to this type of music. So obviously, you know, I found this piece that was omitted in the later versions, and as you know, Edgar Varèse and Louise Varèse were still alive. The question really is the following: why this part has been omitted? To answer this question, I mean, there are many possible answers to this question, but one of the answers that I would like to favor today probably is to finish this presentation and basically leave Louise, the world of Louise Varèse for a while and go back to the world of music, the world of her husband, Edgar Varèse, and search and maybe ask Edgar Varèse himself what he would think about such a type of music, such a type of inspiration, inspired by the scream of bats. As you know, Edgar Varèse was, and I'm sure you will get to re-experience that today, Edgar Varèse was considered to be the founder or father of electronic music, and many of the critics and many of his friends or himself thought that music was not necessarily just a melody or a harmony, but music was a sort of organized sound. So again, my question is the following: what kind of sound does he think would be the most inspiring? In his case, music is any sound that one doesn't like, and I would like again to ask, is that sound the scream of bats? Thank you.
Fanny, thank you. That was fantastic. When I asked you, I forgot that you translated Proust, so of course you jumped to this. Of course, I forgot that Louise translated Proust. When I asked you, so of course you jumped to this. Okay, Andy.
Yeah.
We're going to switch over to the circuit bending part of the salon. You're going to need a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to set up the
Okay. Give us a couple minutes, and we're going to set up the DVD. This won't take more than 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll get started then with the demonstration of circuit bending. We're going to Andy. Why don't you get started, and I'll introduce while you get started.
Okay.
Talk over me. I'll disconnect this. All right, I'm going to let you set up, and I'll quickly introduce. So, electronic music. About 3 years ago, two years ago, Andrew Myron bought out the lease to Clifton's Cafeteria from the Clinton family and took over operating Clifton's Cafeteria. And then at some point, very quickly, he purchased the building, and Clifton's Cafeteria experienced a series of shutdowns for a couple of days or a week at a time over the course of 4 months. And this had a tremendous impact on our salon. And we had a salon scheduled with just Andy because Jeff, you were out of town. And so we had it at the Los Angeles Athletic Club, and Andy just came in with a bunch of recycled consumer products over there and proceeded to use them basically as theremins. And it was a really interesting discussion which touched on the whole notion of the digital convergence. Is there so this is a networked electronic device. It's my iPad, I hate to call it that. It's my tablet that Macintosh makes, which is a fascist operating system, which I despise, which is why I have an Android smartphone.
You got it for free.
I got it for free, I didn't pay for this. This is a networked electronic device. One of the questions that this demonstration and lecture we're about to get into implicitly asks is, at what point is there can you tell the separation between my consciousness and this electronic network device? Like, at what point does my personality and my consciousness end and this electronic network device begin? It's a good question to ask yourself. This is something that's implicitly going to be raised in Andy. We'll probably mention it in passing, if only. Don't really need to know very much about digital signal processing to get this lecture, which is good, because digital signal processing is very complicated. And I think I'm going to stop talking out of fear that I'll say something that Andy won't like and he'll throw something at me. No, I'm doing okay, all right. I'm not upsetting you too much, all right. Good. Yeah, no. So other abstractions that this lecture will talk on, post-consumerism. So the whole notion that, Andy, can I pick up one of these toys?
Yeah, go for it.
And which toy should I pick up?
Pick up the one with the fez on.
It's a Furby.
This is the Furby. Okay. So this is a Furby. So to demonstrate the notion of post-consumerism, someone bought this.
1999.
Yeah, I'm looking. Who's the manufacturer of this?
Hasbro?
Tiger.
Tiger?
Tiger.
Electronics.
Tyco Electronics manufactured this in 1999. Some little kid got this for Hanukkah maybe, or a bar mitzvah. Maybe not a bar mitzvah, but a bris. And his parents bought it for him, or a relative or a friend, and then they got rid of it and they dropped it off at the Jewish Center on Fairfax, just a couple buildings north of Cantor's, to give to poor children. And it went to a thrift store and someone else bought it and it was recycled, and maybe another child got this and played with it for a little bit, but eventually Andy came to buy it at a thrift store. And Andy has turned this into an electronic device, an electronic music device. And that's post-consumerism, is how you reinvent consumer items for a use that were not intended by Tyco. The engineers at Tyco, the marketing staff at Tyco, never in their wildest dreams, and probably in their worst nightmares, ever conceived that Andy would create a theremin-like device out of this for playing music. And so so the digital convergence, post-consumerism, and digital signal processing, and I'm not even going to get into digital signal processing, but as electronic music, that's all that is you have signals are filters, and they're digital, and they're not analog, and I'll stop it there because I don't want to bore people. But
I think we're ready.
Are you ready? Okay. My last thought is the whole notion of digital convergence is intrinsically tied to the notion of the expansion of consciousness to the next manvantara. That this round of consciousness is done, and the next round of consciousness will begin. Right? So the digital convergence, the notion that somehow my tablet is a step in the path of the evolution of human consciousness to cosmic consciousness. I don't think you're going to explicitly talk about that, but this is all here. And Andy and Jeff, and where's Mona Jean?
Getting batteries. Oh no, she got batteries.
You got batteries, thank you. All right, so Jeff, Andy, and Mona Jean, you're gonna take us by the hand, and in about 50 minutes, 45 minutes, we're gonna take about a 10-minute break. So people can get coffee and go to the bathroom and all that stuff. And then I think, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, I think we're going to lean on lecture and demo first, and then hands-on a little later.
Yeah,
Lecture and demo are going to be the front end of this, and then the second half of it will be, you can come on up and play with stuff. Okay?
Stick around to the end because you're going to get to touch stuff and make noise.
So Andy and Jeff, take it away. I'm going to put your Furby back.
Put the Furby back. Yeah. Ready? Here we go.
Not yet. Okay.
Want me to turn the light on?
Yeah, we're haven't had a chance to show.
Sound check.
Sound check.
On the fly. As always.
Oh, okay. Plug in the mixer.
Yeah, plug in your audio.
Get off the stage.
Where have I heard that?
Hey, why do you think they call it experimental?
Thank you for your patience. Is this up?
Still no sound.
She mata, né?
Here you go.
Please welcome Jeff Boynton live on D.I.Y Radio.
I was born in Oak Park, Illinois, which is right border Chicago on the west side. It's where Hemingway was born also. I'd throw that in. And I grew up in the West Chicago suburbs. When I was 8 years old, I started playing cello. But for some reason, sometime around 1964, my parents had bought this record called Columbia Prince of Electronic Music. And this was some of the most out of the mainstream experimental electronic stuff that was going on in the late 50s and early 60s. I played keyboards in, touring rock bands over the years. Louise in particular was the main one. And XTC, we opened for D.I.Y a couple times, passing through Chicago. We were a part of the new wave. I stumbled across an article on circuit bending, which was an interview with Reed Ghazala, who is the father of circuit bending, as they call him, and the one who coined the term. And I knew that this was something that I had to do from reading the article, which explained that circuit bending entails taking inexpensive devices that you're willing to sacrifice should it happen. But it would be like a kid's toy, like Speak and Spell or old Casio keyboards. Open them up, expose the circuit boards, and take test leads and start short-circuiting different points and try and find new sounds. So then you can put switches and knobs on and install them on there and make these sounds permanent. And so you start to collect these instruments that do sonic things way outside of what you would expect. So you can look at a very innocent-looking kid's toy, and these unearthly sounds can come out of it. From the time that I read about circuit bending to the time I started was 10 minutes. I was in this very room before the fire, and I was online and I saw this article on circuit bending, and I yelled down, "Mona, do we have any old toys up here?" And and she had a box of old things, and I opened up a couple things and started poking around. Over the years, as I've done a lot of circuit bending and looked at a million different devices, I'm finding that there's less surprises with that, and I've moved more, my focus is more on finding interfaces and a way of controlling these things. And it's kind of like, it's trying to control that chaos and trying to shape it. Devices was LEDs on your fingertips, and you can move them in front of a video camera. The camera will go into a monitor. There's a box on the monitor with light sensors on it that picks the pattern coming up off the screen, and when it picks up that pattern, it comes to another box which shoots a laser into another box, and when the laser hits that box, it plays a note on the keyboard. So you can move your hands like that, and you're playing playing the keyboard just by moving your hands around. It's kind of a neat piece of art because you can see the lasers going off and there's LEDs, you know, and there's like it's kind of like an expanded view kind of a thing. And if you can explain the process of how it works, then it becomes interesting in a live performance situation.
He worked with Tina Cuccinati, and Tina would invite him to the events. So, and I was married, and he had a girlfriend, and he had a girlfriend for like 4 years. Never saw her. Jeff, why don't you bring your girlfriend? Are you ever going to get married?
Nah. Our first New Year's together, 02, 03, and we were at a friend's house, and he had a gazebo up on the top of the hill, and we were up there together, and you know, Mona said to me, I want to collaborate with you.
Computer integration, machine and mind. Now.
Which means?
The Highland Park Thursday Evening Gentlemen's Society Circuit Bending Marching Band and Ladies Auxiliary, or Types.
So we wanted to do it in the Doodah Parade.
I started a website called circuitbentcity.org, and it's where I will be putting some circuit bent instruments on the market. These instruments will be designed to work with the interface that I've made.
The rhythm is coming from this. We got funk. This is funk. Now I send the signal from the drum machine that goes into this box here. You can see the trigger, and then that rhythm will trigger.
A lot of my ideas don't start off as necessarily an art idea. It's like it starts off with a technical thing. It's like I'd like to be able to do this. I want to be able to control this with that, and it becomes the art part. It becomes a form following function. Is how it works for me, and I kind of imagine what it would be like if I could control the instruments in this certain way. It could be really expressive.
Good job. Is this thing still on?
That was great. You guys going to get started? Can I ask you a favor? I lied and said I wouldn't talk about digital signal processing. Can we just spend a second talking about the inherent resistance of the human skin and how that impacts you playing? Because voltage and resistance are intrinsically connected, and a lot of the stuff you just showed has to do with the resistance of the skin, how you get different tones.
Capacitance.
Yeah.
is the real thing.
Okay. Okay. Capacitance.
So what you're doing is when you, like on the big resin panel, there's wires embedded in the resin, and they all come down and they go into a circuit. And each node of those brass nodes in there connects to a point on the circuit. So if you touch 2 points, you are inserting yourself as a giant capacitor into the circuit. And that's why you affect the sound, and it's expressive because the harder you press, the more surface area. So it's like you're increasing the surface area of the capacitor. So that changes the properties of the sound. And then,
Thank you.
okay.
And I want to just go on that. You can insert several bodies, and that resin thing that we use, we worked with Ken Dugan's dance company at one point. And so we had, I think we started with 9, and then we ended up with 8 dancers. And so we would have like one dancer on one side and one dancer on the other side. And they would touch and it would sound. And then a dancer would join here, and a dancer would join here, and then we come. And then they would touch and it would sound, and then another dancer would join, and then they would touch and it was sound. And we had all 8 dancers all connected, and the choreography, I did something where like one dancer would release, so the just 2 dancers would release. The other 8 are all connected, and it's quiet, and then everybody would morph, and then they would touch another body, and then the circuit was completed, and it would go again, and then so you can insert a lot of bodies, and it came out to be a really cool piece. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, they still need this set up, so I'm the filler. How you guys doing this evening? No. I was thinking about doing like a comedy bit, but I got nothing. So, guy walks into a bar. So yeah, I'm Andy Ben, and I've been circuit bending for, I don't know, 14 years, 13 years, 14 years. And I actually have a friend of mine, Chris Martinez. We were playing avant-garde music a la Sun Ra, and I was doing tape noise originally, which was just like slowed down ambient tape collage of refrigerator compressors and water going through PVC pipe and stuff like that. And eventually, my friend's like, oh, you should check out circuit bending. So I looked it up and found Reed's site, and I went to my grandma's house in Salinas, and her second husband had just passed away, but he had one of these keyboards in the closet. So it was just me and her, and she was like in her early 80s, and I cracked it open at the dining room table, and she totally got it. I started making sounds immediately, and she kind of said the same thing of the earlier talk. She's like, oh, this is where music's going. So it was kind of an intrinsic thing that she knew already, and yeah, I kind of just got into that and kept doing it, and then I met Jeff and Mona about 10 years ago, and
How about Derek, maybe, or how we met?
oh yeah, they're used to Nathan Cartwright. You guys know the Hyde Gallery? It's like one of these main galleries on Spring. He used to live at this place called Hangar 1018, and they would throw these shows called The Max, which is basically right up our alley because it was just 3-4 rooms, all this electronic music projection, and our mutual friend Derek and I, we would do these cage type of happenings where we would play for 6, 7, 8 hours straight and have 2 or 3 of these and projections. And I heard that like the biggest one that we did, we had this whole thing, we were gonna have horn players come in, and we had poets and musicians, and Derek's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's another circuit bender coming. And we'd never met him. I guess Jeff had gotten a hold of him online, and he showed up. And it was kind of like the pleasantry. He's like, yeah, nice to meet you. And immediately, I'm like, okay, I'm in performance mode. We got an 8-hour block to fill. I'm like, where's your gear, bro?
I know, because Jeff calls me and he's like, I was out of town at the time, and he's like, yeah, I knew about the event, and I'm going down, there's circuit benders. They're doing this thing down there. And I'm like, honey, take your gear down, because he had already built 3 or 4 things. So, oh, no, I couldn't possibly. And, about an hour later, he's driving home. I met him all there, let me bring my gear, I'm going home and get myself up and go down, I'm going to be playing with him. They're going to do 12 hours of it.
So yeah, that was kind of the first time we met, and the name of our band was Zeph Rennerus, was Shriner Fez backwards. There's the Furby that he was holding up.
Did not come with it. It wasn't sold with the fez.
So we custom made this fez for him, and we actually, when we do the marches, we have a little wooden car that I made because I used to teach a woodworking class through this art non-prof, and the kids helped me make this car. So he's kind of like our drunk Shriner with his car at the parades. And so we say that's when Zeph met Jeff. And yeah, we've kind of just been doing it. I taught a class at LACMA in 2009 when they opened Beat Camp because they wanted contemporary art, and so we did a week class there. We had 21 kids, and we've taught. We're maybe doing something at the Sound Engineering Academy up in Hollywood probably later this summer. There is going to be an email if you guys want to. We do the parades. Yeah, it's basically it. Maybe later I'll get into the whole culture jam plan versus dynamic obsolescence, Vance Packard, Wastemaker, blah blah blah. But I don't really want to do that, you know. I'll do it very lightly because I'd rather have you guys just make some terrible noise at the end of this. That would make me much happier. Are you guys ready to go? Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. So.
Do you want us to do our thing now, or I can do a demo of the 240?
It's totally up to you guys. Well, when's the break? Do we have a time for the break?
Around 1 o'clock, what time is it?
It's almost 10 to 1 right now.
I'll just do a demo here.
Do a demo for me, yeah, there's no set time. Thank you.
Okay, so when I'm going to demo, this is pretty much the heart of my circuit bending outfit. And this is a Casio MT240 keyboard that was manufactured in 1989. And there's still a lot of them around. And it's my favorite for circuit bending. So right now I just have a drum rhythm going here. This is the...
That's good.
So this is like your stock sounds. And then basically when I flip any switch here, I am connecting 2 points on a chip, a circuit. And this is not what the engineers had in mind, but it will. It randomizes, and it'll still maintain the rhythm. And the great thing is it's got a MIDI interface into it. It'll actually put out a MIDI clock so you can synchronize normal gear with this and drive it. You know, and there's all kinds of other things, and then just... That was not, this is like nothing like what any of the original sounds. There's nothing like that. And then another thing that I've been doing recently, which you saw in the documentary, was I came up with this interface, which my wife calls it the bento box. What I can do is I can send any audio signal into this. In this case, I'll send a rhythm from this keyboard. And what this does is it takes the audio signal and it senses the pulse, and it will output a trigger signal. I can actually trigger other circuit bent gear from whatever source. And this can be a live drummer too. If I have a chance later, I actually have some videotape of live drummers that I did, and you can actually see them playing, and through the camera audio, they're triggering like this keyboard. So, no further ado. Okay, I'm missing one cable.
There's only 19 cables up there, but the one that you need is not the one that's there. Just going on the time and stuff, it's really complicated to do this stuff, and we have a really hard time finding venues that are prepared and can appreciate us. And we get our cable?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's just putting it out there.
We appreciate you.
You know what? You guys, listen, I've known Kim for over 20 decades. And they've always, her and Richard have always been very, very kind to us. And so we really love coming here. So you guys are great. You got the video and you actually seemed like you understood it and laughed in the right places. So bless your hearts.
So here I have a CNC. So now I can get this keyboard. It's going to work. It's going to cooperate. So this is triggering that. So that's one. And I have this, this is a Vietnamese chant box that Andy and I purchased about a year ago, blocks away from here, over in Chinatown. So,
how much did that cost?
$20.
$20.
But you have to find them, which is, that's the tricky part.
So as this is triggering, I have it set up so it's advancing through, there's 20 different chants in here. And so it's stepping through the different chants and stopping and starting. And the keyboard is now stopping and starting the chant. Change the pitch on it. So that's pretty much how that all works. Sure. I'm going to give a brief demo here. This is, we call this one a 49. And what this is, there's 49 photoresistors in this box here. And there's 49 keys on the keyboard. So each one of these, there's one for each key on the keyboard. So what I can do is when light hits this, it'll actually play a note on the keyboard. So I can plug this in.
Also, what we were doing was we used the camera, which feeds into the DVD monitor, and sometimes, last night we didn't get quite a chance to do this, but I wear these.
You guys got shut down last night, didn't you?
Yeah.
Sure did.
Cool.
So I was wearing these lights.
I have pictures.
And I was going to be performing in front of the camera, which would be projected, and then the camera would go to the monitor.
Do you actually want to try and do the camera thing?
Oh, I don't know. Do you have it? Or
I'm not set up.
We're not set up for
I didn't realize
that.
we were doing that. We can set up for it later.
We'll set up for it later, but in the meantime.
Oh.
And see, me and my lights, I would be like dancing in front of the, you get the point.
What happened, normally this will rest up against the monitor, and the camera feeds it, and so any of the light patterns. So you can have a DVD with light patterns, programmed in it already, so then you have a visual, and then the sound actually is being triggered by light events, and so you have sound synchronized with video. So are we at 1 o'clock now?
Yeah, but if you want to go for another 5-10 minutes, if you feel you're at a...
No, I'm actually at a good, I could do some more.
Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, so... First of all, fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. Second of all, it's 1 o'clock. Let's come back in 10 minutes, and we will move out of theory and lecture and more into hands-on. Okay? All right, very good. So, why don't we get started? If only to have Andy do a little song and dance while you guys get warmed up here.
Okay,
you are, good.
So, we're cool. So, I'm going to talk just briefly a little bit about circuitry and poetry, which is my husband and myself. So, I am a sign language interpreter by day job. And I choreograph and I compose with American Sign Language. I actually compose or choreograph with a lot of different sign languages. For my bachelor's, I use 6 sign languages: American, Russian, Japanese, German, Italian, and Dutch. And yes, they are all different. American Sign Language actually has its roots in French Sign Language, langue de signes français. And I liked linguistics, and I did a lot of studying of languages when I was young. So I ended up getting involved with the poetry community. And I don't know, does anybody know slam poetry at all? Slam poetry? Yeah, it's competition poetry. It started in Chicago in a bar with a bunch of drunk poets. My poem is better than your poem, and they picked some drunk people at the bar and gave them like little scorecards, and so one poet went blah, 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 and the people at the bar went 8.9, 7.2, 6.4, and then there was a winner. And then pretty much the next year, San Francisco said to Chicago, our poets are better than your poets. And the first National Slam was on. Fast forward 20 years, every year the slams went to a different city, and they would have a nationals. Last year they were in Boston. We had 80 teams of poets. So each city sends its best slam poets, and they bring their culture. And it's a wonderful thing to see Hawaiian poets, and Oklahoma poets, and New Yorican poets, and Seattle Mama poets. And it's a wonderful culture, and they all get together. And in 2004, 3, when was I in Chicago when they had the RID thing, Jeffrey?
03.
Oh, 3, yes. I was in Chicago and I saw the poetry thing going on there, and I went for their open mic and I have a poem, Hollywood, and so they saw, and he's like, oh, you have to be our sign language interpreter. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I ended up interpreting for the slams for every year for 10 years, and in 2005, Paris sent a team of poets, and they performed in French, but they projected their text in English, and then they proceeded to invite me to Paris every year for Le Coup du Monde de Poésie, which is like an international slam, and I ended up representing the United States in 2011 as a slam poet. So, what I was going to do is just a tiny little bit of linguistics to create a poem in sign language, because you don't have the hearing. But what we do is we use handshakes. So you have an A handshake, a B handshake, a 1 handshake, a 5 handshake, and if you do a bunch of signs together using that same handshake, that's like rhyming. So a few examples in some of my poems are like, you think you can hurt me, but you can't, I'll survive. Stand, look me straight in the eye. You know, things like this. I have one about the night knows my mind, dark with despair, the sorrowful silence surrounding me. So that's how I create these poems, and then having husband and performing together, like you saw, we did the things where we touch each other. That one was actually called Bent Haiku, and in sign language we have 5 signs for computer, actually. So we have computer, 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 and computer. There's 4 signs. So I made haikus with each of those these signs, and progressing through a relationship with a computer, you know, computer acquaintance, and then computer companion, computer consummation, computer integration. So that's how that went. So I'm always like going, oh, honey, can we make it do this? And this is where one of my props come in. Actually, Andy is also definitely a co-conspirator in our crimes. So they found these little, and you can come up and see them, they're these little Saw choir, like the movie The Saw, and they have these little dolls that are on this little box that is a recorder. It recorded like 11 seconds or something like this of an audio. And so we got a whole bunch of them cheap. So Andy's like, we should have a choir. We're going to have a choir, a Saw choir. And, well, how many are we going to have in this? And it's like, so I'm thinking, okay, well, I had this idea for the tender commandments. And so I said, well, 10. Let's make 10. And so we started it, and it's like, honey, can they do this? Let me think. Yeah, can it do this? Whoa, well, you know. And so he's a wonderful husband. He makes it happen. And so, you know, instead of thou shalt not, it became thou shalt love. You know, thou shalt be beauty. She said, let there be love. Don't care who or what or how you love. Just love unconditionally. And it became, I didn't know Rob Bresney of the Free Will Horoscope. It became in his thing. So so we did this, and it became, the end was, don't dwell or deny your darkness. Learn to love it to death. Make music with your madness and dance to her holy song. So that was a piece we did. So we're going to do one piece that we've just kind of been rehearsing lately, and it's called Sorry. And it shows, we're just going to do this one piece to show you how the sounds become bent, and then they match the poetry and stuff. So I usually use a wireless mic, because he gets loud and stuff. So, try not to do that. Okay, here we go. This is called Sorry, and this will be probably the only performance that you'll actually see tonight and today. him we are given plenty of power to help, change, to save, and to love, but the true sorrow is in power. Smile. I'm sorry I didn't work more, didn't try harder, didn't seize the day every day. I'm sorry for the harm I caused, for the harm I saw and didn't prevent. I'm sorry for the lack of empathy for others and toward me. I'm sorry. I am lazy. I'm crazy. It's so easy to find fault with me, to criticize and condemn again and again and again. I am sorry. I am human. Meaning, I'm flawed. It's love. Forgiveness is the key. And I'm sorry. I never said I'm sorry. To me. Sorry, Margie. It's alright. It's being tethered to the mic is a little hard. Usually I get this. So that's circuitry and poetry, and I think we're gonna go on to. I have no idea. I was told to do that much.
Thank you.
I think you're up there, Andy.
You want to hard at too?
Yeah, we got 30 minutes, people. Jeff, do you want to do the bento demo with Mitch?
Sure.
Are you set up to do it, or?
Give me 1 second. Yeah, okay.
So anyway, I want to. And we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that at the very end. And we're just gonna let. It's gonna become a free for all at the very end with the toys. So does anybody have any questions?
What is digital convergence?
Digital convergence. You guys know Kurzweil Instruments, work with Stevie Wonder. He's all about the technological singularity, which has to do with, Richard touched on a little bit, human consciousness and the evolution of technology reaching to a point of creating like a kind of global unified consciousness, which has to do with the bell curve at which the rate of technology is exponentially increasing, and the way that we communicate through it, or be enslaved by it, depending on how you want to flip it. So yeah, this kind of, I mean, the thing about Furby, there was Furby and Tamagotchi, and Dave Hampton, who also worked on the Atari 2600, he was like part of the original design team for Furby. And Furby's kind of the only thing that's lasted, but it's, in a way, I argue that it's the beginning of AI, consumer AI, because they keep releasing Furby. Furby has brand marketing, and I think that's part of the whole thing that's not really discussed about the digital singularity, is the rate of consumption. And that's kind of what I was going to talk about, is that Vance Packard wrote The Wastemakers in 1960, and Alfred P. Sloan and dynamic versus planned obsolescence. So everything that we're consuming now. So Alfred P. Sloan took over General Motors, and in 1931 General Motors overtook the Ford Company as far as production. because Henry Ford didn't believe in the yearly model. He had the Model A and the Model T, and he's like, that's all I need. I need to control the market by having product superiority, and then we'll just keep swapping them out. We'll keep replacing parts and stuff like that. And once Alfred P. Sloan took over General Motors, it was like, no, that's not the business model. The business model is to force people into planned or dynamic obsolescence, so every year they need to buy a new car. So then you kind of get the beginning of what becomes planned obsolescence, but also in a way postmodern consumption, which, you know, people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and everybody now is really running with, because the technological curve is based off of several things. And the circuit bending is the same thing. I kind of like to think that when I'm old, I'm going to look back and be like, well, there was this really great time in circuit bending, which was the early 90s till about 5 years ago. Because the way that circuit boards were being produced in that time, hate to say it, was, you know, terribly cheap labor, which is going to continue, but circuit boards were hand assembled all up into a certain point. Up until about 10 years ago when they started rendering stuff, so you have 3D modeling and you have printed circuit boards, which are a real pain if you're circuit bending. First of all, it eliminates a certain amount of the workforce, even if it isn't a third world country, but it also makes anything that we're making a little bit more unstable, because the printed circuit components are a lot cheaper. They can't handle the stress of being rewired and made to do something that they weren't designed for. Whereas all the hand wire stuff, originally, these are ceramic parts that somebody had to put into it in China. So a lot of these things, some of the toys that I have, like the train, if you guys play the train, that was designed in, I think, 1994, 90, you know, so we're coming up on, some of these toys are 20 years old. And if you look them up to purchase these toys, you either have to go as an end consumer into the thrift store and get them, or you gotta go to eBay and get them. And the one that I got, actually, Poe, which isn't working, was a Microsoft design, really scary, talk about AI, Microsoft designed a Teletubby that was supposed to have a wireless interface with a radio cartridge that you could hook up to a DVD. I'm not really sure what was going on there. But I got it for 30 bucks, and in the tag on eBay it says a vintage Teletubby toy from 1998. So to make everybody in this room feel really old, 1998 is now vintage. And that's kind of the whole thing, is hopefully this stuff has something to do with the dialogue of post-consumption and brand marketing and the way that education, because some of these things are labeled as education toys, which in itself is kind of sinister. And yeah, it's whatever the subversive movement is to kind of take the technology back and make it our own. And I always tell Jeff, it's like, I think that what we're doing is folk art. Because they're going to make pianos, they're going to make guitars, they're going to make wind, and they're going to make brass instruments. They're never, ever, ever going to make another one of these, ever. There's a finite amount of these circuits that were ever made. And if that doesn't constitute folk art in the certain sense of you cannot get these instruments, I mean you can still walk into a thrift store in the valley and get one of these for 20 bucks, but nobody understands the implication that all of this stuff is obsolete by design, by marketing practice, and by strategy. So that's pretty much it, that's all I got.
I'm going to do a little quick demo of this 49er interface. And so I'm going to explain what I'm
Jeff, I'm going to interrupt you. Do you think people should come up? Because I think it's really hard to see.
Well, I'm going to actually have a projector.
Okay, good.
So, but I'll explain what's happening is this video camera is feeding the monitor on this DVD player here. And so I'm going to start pointing the camera at the lights, and when the light patterns, which you'll see projected, when they come across the screen here, they're going to trigger notes on this keyboard. Sorry about that. You can hear it already. everybody understand what's happening? So, in other words, we're seeing the same video here. It's on this screen here. I put this sensor on here, it's picking up the light pattern from there. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I have a videotape of some drummers from LA, and I'm still figuring out how to work this, so bear with me. I'm going to have to dial it in. But basically, what's happening is the camera audio from these live drummers is actually going to be triggering circuit bent sound, and so therefore you'll see audio. You'll hear circuit bent audio in sync with the video. So hopefully this will work.
Greetings, citizens of Nashville.
This is from another one.
Other performers, if they were doing a show, they would use this bento box we're thinking like DJs might like it to be playing their set and then plug it in into some sort of band gear and add a little chaos, a little quirkiness, but it would still be in sync. So that was always our trouble in the past, is because you have all these random toys, all with their own chaos, and to get them to all sync together was pretty much impossible. So maybe that's what makes our marching band so fun, is because everybody has their own toy, and they carry these little Boynton cubes over there. You too could be a member of Textabamba. All you have to do is wear some blue and gold. So ladies, this is your chance to go shopping. Anything blue and gold, think about it.
Okay, that's the idea of that. Sorry about the glitchiness of it.
Thank you.
I think we're getting ready to the question answer, hands-on playtime. So
Good.
I think it's anybody, and I'm really serious about the Textabamba. We will be marching in the Doodah, which will be this fall. So if you can
Email this right here.
blue or gold, but I have a huge wardrobe of blue and gold. That don't worry, just show up.
I'm just curious how they work in sign language.
Well, why did sign language come in that? Because it's my day job. I'm an interpreter. So I've been interpreting for over 20 years, and when I choreograph with sign language and I compose with sign language, and then I meet this man. And one of the first things that we did together was a piece at Burning Man, and this was just before circuit bending, but he was still in that Columbia music mindset. So we had a mockingbird outside the house, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and so he captured it to DAC, digital audio tape, and then just sliced it all up. And we were going to take it to Burning Man. Oh, what can we do? Oh, because I want to do sign language. So I had done that piece with the different sign languages, and it was like a reincarnational piece. So we did. It was long. It was like birth, life, desire, change, goals, struggle, learn, love, self, spirit, free. There's actually 23 signs. That's like 8 of them. And then die. And then I would birth again in like Russian sign language. And then I would birth again in Japanese sign language. So because the sign itself, the gesture was different, the choreography was a little bit different, because the gesture and the sign language was related to each other. And then he came along, so I'm not stopping what I'm doing, so I was already doing the sign language and the dance and the poetry. And then we became secretary. I don't know, Jeff, what do you think?
I think the question is there a feedback loop that becomes so recursive it destroys reality?
It sucks us all into
That was my plan originally. Girls won't date me. Obviously everything gets really loud. Is there a point where you're like blowing out channels on your mixing board, or does new videos just level itself soft? No, I have to try to
level them out. Because sometimes it's unpredictable. The more you work with an instrument, the more you kind of learn. Well, if I flip this switch and that here and that one there, it's going to get loud.
The drums are like beautiful and amazing, but I'm imagining you wrote the person pretty out and has a chance of popping into a circuit. So I was just wondering if you had
I've destroyed plenty of devices attempting to circuit bend, and that's part of the thing is you don't bend something that has a lot of value to you as it is. So if you blow up if you blow up something.
Texas Instrument translator that are really rare, really expensive.
Hands off.
Be careful.
Yeah.
I think we want to get into the hands-on stuff. So Andy, do you want to bring the microphone over to you and you'll just give us some direction what we can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just setting stuff up on this table. We're trying to get some amplification. If you guys can come closer and check stuff out, we'll,
So I think, Jeff, if you maybe man the station over on the left once you get set up, Andy will man on the right. And we'll just with body on, you can be exactly who you are, which is fantastic, and fill in all the gaps. So I think we're going to have two demonstration stations, one with Andy next to me and on the right-hand side where Jeff is. I'll get that table set up.
put phone in the track. He's nailed me an old digitape camera. It's like a digitape. So yeah,
Your phone has now been circuit bent.
How do you do that?
that was great.
You dropped it.